I haven't posted a video in months, but somehow, every night at midnight, my phone goes live. And the man in those videos, it wears my face, but it isn't me. It started 2 weeks after my arrest. I was known for pranks, stupid ones, mostly staged, meant to go viral. Fake arrests, fake chases, fake meltdowns. But one night in BGC, I pushed too far. I faked a kidnapping. I thought it would blow up. Instead, I got tackled by actual cops. The kid I used for the video cried so hard I still hear it in my sleep. I was sentenced to 3 months in a local jail just outside Manila. It wasn't the worst place, but it wasn't good either. Concrete cells, no fans, mosquitoes that could carry off a child. Still, I figured I'd wait it out, lay low, and come back with a redemption arc. My phone, of course, had been confiscated at intake, or so I thought. But on the third night, I was lying on my bunk, barely able to sleep in the heat, when a guard walked by with a weird look on his face. He stopped at my cell, tapped the bars. "Did you get your phone back somehow?" he asked. I sat up. "Number Y?" He frowned, held out his own phone. "Then what's this?" On the screen was a live stream, my channel, my name. And there I was, sitting cross-legged on my bunk, eyes locked on the camera, whispering something. But I wasn't live. I was in bed. I hadn't moved in hours. "What the hell?" I whispered. The guard turned the phone to check the timestamp. 11:59 p.m., streaming live. We both looked up. Nothing in the cell. No cameras, no movement. He muttered something in Tagalog and walked off, saying he'd check with his supervisor. But by morning he was gone, transferred to another block. No one else brought it up. I wouldn't have believed it myself, except the next night it happened again. And this time, I watched it. Midnight. The cell lights flickered. The air grew cold, so cold I saw my breath, which made no sense in a place that usually felt like a sauna. My bunkmate, an older guy named Enzo, was snoring beside me. Then, a buzzing sound. I turned toward the barred window. No lights outside, but a faint glow came from the crack near the toilet. I crawled over, hands shaking. A phone. My phone, lying on the floor, screen lit up, streaming live. But I hadn't touched it. The front camera was on, and the image? Me, staring into the lens with wide, glassy eyes, mouth hanging slightly open. Then my reflection, the live stream version of me, smiled. Just barely, then slowly raised a finger to its lips. Shh. I flinched backward, knocking into the bars. The glow faded. The phone was gone. I checked the corner. The crack. Nothing. The next day, one of the younger inmates stopped me in the yard. "You still doing content?" he asked. I told him no. He tilted his head. "Then how come I saw you live last night? You were doing weird stuff, like you weren't all there." I didn't answer, because I'd seen the comments on the replay too, before it was mysteriously deleted. "He's awake again?" "This one's more obedient." "Say it again." The line. That night I didn't sleep. I sat up, waiting. At 11:59 p.m. it happened. Lights flickered, temperature dropped. The cell went silent, like someone had cut out the world. And then I heard it. My voice, coming from the wall. "Tonight's prank," it said, "is something special." I looked down. My hands were moving, but I wasn't controlling them. I was streaming again. No phone, no camera. But I could feel it. Like 1,000 invisible eyes were watching through the cracks in the walls, through the buzzing of the light, through the hollow space inside my own skull. I stood up involuntarily and began whispering lines I didn't understand. Foreign words, choppy syllables, over and over. And then I laughed. That was the worst part, because I didn't feel anything, but I laughed, like it was a reflex, like my body had been rented out for a role I didn't audition for. When I woke up, I was back in bed, but my wrists were sore, and etched into the wall in tiny scratches were the same 4 words: "Smile, you're live." I tried telling the guards. They laughed. Tried asking for a priest. They sent a counselor instead. Even Enzo, the guy I shared the cell with, refuses to speak to me now. He won't even sleep on the top bunk anymore. I found him curled up on the floor last night, whispering, "You weren't snoring, but I heard you speak." I haven't been able to find the phone since, but every night at midnight, I feel it. That same pull, that same emptiness crawling up my spine. And when I close my eyes, I see a red dot blinking in the dark, streaming, broadcasting to someone, something, and worst of all, the subscriber count is going up. I woke up to the sound of my own breathing, but I wasn't the one doing it. This happened when I was being held in a jail somewhere outside of Cavite. A short sentence, nothing violent. I'd been arrested for pulling a prank that went too far, pretending to rob my own crew at knife point in front of a crowded restaurant. Someone called the cops. They didn't laugh when they showed up. They transferred me to a provincial jail. It was overcrowded, filthy, and always humming with noise. Radio static, yelling inmates, footsteps of guards on broken tile. But I kept to myself. I wasn't trying to make friends. I just wanted to do my time and get out. My cell had 2 bunks. The guy assigned with me, Raphael, was quiet, older, maybe mid-40s. He slept early and kept a Bible under his pillow. The kind of guy who didn't talk much but didn't bother you either. That was fine by me. The weirdness started after my 3rd night. I was lying in bed, eyes closed, not quite asleep yet, when Raphael muttered something in the dark. "Stop breathing like that." I opened my eyes. "What?" He sat up, peered down at me from the top bunk. I said, "Stop messing around." "I'm not doing anything," I whispered. He just stared for a second, then lay back down. That night I barely slept, because I realized what he heard wasn't me. I hadn't been breathing loudly, but someone or something was. I tried to tell myself it was just the pipes, or the cell next door, but the next night it happened again. Sometime after lights out, I heard my own breathing, deep, rhythmic, right beside me, under my bunk blanket. The air went cold, my spine locked up. I didn't move at first, just listened. It wasn't me. My mouth was clamped shut, my lungs were barely working. But something inches away was inhaling slow and smiling while doing it. You can hear when someone's smiling. That small curve of the lips shifts the sound, like they're holding back a laugh. I reached for the edge of the blanket with trembling fingers, lifted it, and that's when I saw it. Me, under the blanket, curled on his side, face pale and stretched, eyes wide open but not blinking, and smiling, ear to ear. It looked exactly like me. The face, the hair, the small scar on my temple. But the eyes, they weren't mine. They were older, deeper, like something had been wearing that face long before I was ever born. It didn't blink. It didn't move. Then very slowly, it leaned closer and whispered, "Your prank ends tonight." I jumped back, smashed my head on the wall behind me, and scrambled toward the cell bars. "Raphael! Raphael, wake up!" He didn't move. I turned back to the bunk. It was empty. Just my blanket, my pillow. No one there. No breathing. I backed into the bars until my spine ached. My heart was thundering in my throat. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. At dawn, Raphael climbed down like nothing happened. I told him what I saw. He looked at me, real serious, and said, "You shouldn't have talked to it." That's when he finally opened up. He told me that cell used to be used for solitary, years ago, before they rebuilt that wing. Prisoners who went in alone sometimes didn't come out the same. Some claimed they saw mirrors that didn't reflect right. Others said something crawled into bed with them. "But it only shows itself," Raphael whispered, "to those who pretend to be someone they're not." That hit me harder than I expected. I tried to laugh it off, but my voice cracked halfway through. For a while, things were quiet again. A week passed. No whispering, no doppelgänger. I convinced myself it was just sleep deprivation, my brain playing tricks on me. Then, last night happened. I'd just fallen asleep when I felt the bunk shake slightly, like someone was climbing in beside me. But Raphael was still above. I could hear him breathing. I stayed still. Then came the whisper, right at the back of my neck. "You wore my face. Now I'll wear yours." I turned around in pure panic, and it was already inside the blanket with me, not lying down this time. kneeling. Its face was inches from mine. The eyes were wider now, mouth stretched too far to be human, and its skin was starting to rot, peeling like old latex. I could see something else underneath. Dark, twisted. I screamed and threw the blanket off. Raphael jumped down. The guards came running. When they unlocked the cell, they found me curled in the corner, soaked in sweat, shaking uncontrollably. There was nothing else in the bunk. They're moving me to another block today, but I don't think it matters anymore. This morning I looked in the mirror in the medical room. The face looking back at me smiled. Before I did, and I swear, it winked. Every night at exactly midnight, one tile in my cell cracked open and screamed like it was remembering its own death. But on the 7th night, it screamed my name. They told me it was just old construction. Concrete settles, one guard said. These floors? Built in the 70s. They groan. I didn't believe it even then, because settling concrete doesn't scream. I was locked up in a provincial jail in the Philippines, somewhere down south. I was serving 3 months for a prank that spiraled out of control, fake gunshots in a public park for a video. I know, I was an idiot. What was supposed to be content turned into chaos. I got arrested on the spot. They threw me into a cramped 2-man cell. My bunkmate, a quiet guy named Luis, had only a few days left on his sentence. First thing he told me was, "Don't put your ear too close to the floor. They'll think you're listening." I laughed, thought he was joking. He wasn't. The cell had white tiles, old, chipped, and stained with things I didn't want to identify. Most of them were cracked. But one night, 4 days in, I heard it. It was just past midnight. I was staring at the ceiling, sweating in the heat, when I heard something snap under the bunk. Not a shift, not a squeak, a pop, like a bottle cap under pressure. Then, a low, breathy scream. I froze. Luis didn't move. I thought he was asleep, until I saw his eyes wide open, reflecting what little moonlight filtered through the barred window. "You heard that?" I whispered. He nodded once, didn't say anything. I leaned over the edge of my bunk and looked at the floor. One of the tiles, just one, had a fresh crack, jagged, like something pushed up from beneath. No more sound, no more movement, just silence. The next morning, the crack was still there, dry, clean, not like the others. The second night, another tile cracked. This time, closer to my bunk. The scream was different, higher pitched, like it came from a woman. Short, maybe 2 seconds, but unmistakably human, full of pain, not words, just pure anguish. Luis said nothing. I asked him what was happening. He finally answered. "They scream in order, one by one." I didn't understand. He pointed at the floor. Each one cracked the same way, one per night, always past midnight. When they reach your bed, they stop. "Then what?" I asked. He looked away. "They replace you." I thought he was messing with me. Maybe it was a sick game inmates played on the new guy, but I started to pay attention. Night 3, a child's scream. Night 4, a raspy, broken moan. Night 5, whispers, hundreds of them, leaking out from a cracked tile just beside the toilet. I pressed my palm to the floor by accident while getting up, and the tile was ice cold. Not like the rest. It felt like metal, like it wasn't part of the prison at all. That night, I couldn't sleep. By night 6, I was unraveling. The scream that came then was different, closer, angrier, like it recognized me. Luis sat up and faced me. "You only have 1 night left." I stared at him. "What do you mean?" He leaned in, whispered so softly I could barely hear. "I was in the cell next door. Before they moved me here." He pointed at the tiles near my bunk. "They screamed for the guy before you, 1 tile per night. On the 7th, they took him." He paused. "No one remembered him the next day, like he never existed." I didn't believe him, couldn't, but the fear was getting harder to explain away. That morning, I asked the guard during head count about the last guy who had my cell. He flipped through his folder and frowned. "Last guy in 4B?" he asked. "Yeah, what happened to him?" The guard looked confused. "You've always been in 4B." I didn't sleep that night. I sat up, blanket wrapped around me, staring at the tile nearest my bed. It had no crack, yet. At 12:03 a.m., I heard it, a small, sharp pop. Then the tile split, and from it came a scream unlike the others. It was my voice, begging, panicked, screaming things I hadn't said yet. "No, please, don't take me, don't take me, I'm sorry." Then it stopped. The tile was still cracked, but nothing moved, and the cell felt off, thicker, like the air had gained weight. I backed away, bumping into Luis's bunk, but it was empty. Luis was gone. No blankets, no mattress, no name on the inmate log. The guard walked past on patrol and didn't even glance at the top bunk. I whispered, "Where's Luis?" He paused. "Who?" I didn't speak for the rest of the night. I didn't sleep. Now every night since, I've stared at that cracked tile, waiting. But no new screams have come. It's like the floor is listening. I think I stopped the pattern. Or maybe it's just watching now, waiting for me to relax, to lie down, to stop being afraid. But I won't, because I know what happens next. One more scream. Mine, but not from me, from the tile. It didn't bleed, it didn't smell, but the finger on my bunk had my tattoo, and it was getting closer every night. I was already 3 weeks into my sentence at a small provincial jail in the Philippines when it showed up. No explanation, no warning. I came back from evening duty, sweeping the outer yard, and there it was, sitting neatly on the edge of my mattress, a severed human finger, old, shriveling, nails cracked, skin gray and dry like jerky. It looked like it had been dead for days, but it wasn't that froze me in place. It was the mark. Right there, on the side of the knuckle, barely visible under the flaking skin, was my tattoo. A crooked little V I'd etched into my own finger when I was 16. A stupid dare with a sewing needle and some ink. It was mine. No one else had it. I would have bet my life on that. I stared at it for what felt like hours. Eventually, I grabbed an old sock, wrapped the thing up, and tossed it into the corner behind the toilet. I didn't know what else to do. You can't exactly tell a guard you found your own finger lying on your bed. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was scared, not yet, but because I kept hearing things. A faint tapping, like fingernails against concrete. I told myself it was rats. In the morning, I checked the corner. The sock was gone. I searched every inch of that cell, beneath the bunk, inside the vent, even the rim of the toilet bowl. Nothing. I thought maybe someone was messing with me. In jail, paranoia is normal, but this felt different. This felt targeted. The next night it came back, this time on the floor, a few inches from the edge of my bed. Same finger, same faded V. I didn't touch it, just backed into the wall and stared at it until sunrise. By morning it was gone again, and that became the pattern. Every night it returned, closer. First on the mattress, then by my foot, then by my head. It never moved when I looked, never shifted in plain sight, but I started to feel it, a presence, like something waiting, like I was being observed not from the other side of the bars, but from inside the walls themselves. The air in my cell grew colder, thicker. My breath would fog up, even in the sticky heat. I couldn't explain it. I stopped sleeping, started keeping my eyes open until they burned. On the 5th night, it touched me. I woke up to a faint pressure on my pillow, like the weight of a coin. I turned my head and it was lying inches from my cheek, bent, pointing toward my mouth. I jumped up, kicked the thing across the cell, and it made a wet sound as it hit the wall. That was new. For something so dry and dead, it landed like fresh meat. I screamed, slammed the bars, begged to be moved. The guard didn't even flinch, just shook his head. "You're in 3B, he said. "You stay." I found out later no one lasted long in that cell. They always asked to be moved. Some refused to talk at all. One guy pulled out his own fingernails with a spoon. I didn't blame them, because the 7th night broke me. I was lying still, staring up at the ceiling, when I felt it crawl under the blanket. Not fast, slow, deliberate. I didn't move. I couldn't. It slithered up my leg, past my hip, over my chest. I felt it stop at my throat, a single cold digit pressing down, not enough to choke, just enough to remind me it was there. And then, in my own voice, a whisper in my left ear. "Where did you bury the rest of me?" I screamed, loud, raw. They moved me to solitary. I thought it was over, but last night, in the middle of a cell with no windows, no bed, no blankets, I woke up to a sound, not tapping, scratching, from inside the wall, and written in dust across the floor, clear as blood on tile, were 4 words. "You still have me." I looked down and found a fresh cut across my finger, my left hand, right through the tattoo. Only, I don't remember getting hurt. I don't remember bleeding, but it's there, and it's getting deeper every day, like something is trying to take it back. They said no one survives more than 3 nights in cell 13. I laughed when I heard it, until I saw the thing crouched beneath the bars, whispering my name like it already owned me. I never thought a prank could land me in a Philippine jail. It was supposed to be harmless, just another viral stunt for the channel. I'd faked a robbery in a convenience store near Makati, complete with a toy gun and terrified staff. The video never even made it online. The cops did though, fast. They threw me in a holding cell first, but by nightfall they moved me to the old wing, maximum security, cell 13. The guard who escorted me didn't say much, just glanced at the rusted cell door like it was a grave. "Stay quiet tonight," he muttered. "Don't talk back. Don't talk at all." I thought he meant the inmates. I was wrong. The cell was cold. Not like aircon cold, this was damp tomb cold. The walls sweated, the floor was cracked and uneven, and the single flickering bulb overhead hummed like it was ready to die. My bunk was bolted to the wall, and the toilet was just a hole. No windows, just the hallway bars in front of me. I was alone, or supposed to be. The first night I heard whispers, soft, wet sounding, like someone speaking through water. At first I thought it was another inmate down the corridor. I tried to tune it out, but around 2 a.m., I realized the whisper wasn't around my cell. It was beneath it. Something was moving. I froze on my bunk. The floor under the bars where the hallway met my cell had a slight gap, just a few inches of shadow. That's where I saw it, a shape, shifting, slithering. I leaned forward, squinting. That's when I heard it. "Vitaly!" I felt my chest seize. The voice was too close. It didn't echo like voices do in cells. It vibrated, low and crawling, like it was inside my ribcage. "Vitaly!" I jumped back, hit the bunk. I called out, "Hey, who's there?" Nothing. The voice stopped. The shape disappeared. The guards didn't respond. The next morning I asked about it. A younger guard gave me a sharp look and muttered, "Don't engage. That cell's not for you. You're just passing through." That didn't sit right. "What do you mean not for me? Just don't talk to it." He wouldn't say more. That night I tried to stay awake. I told myself I'd imagined it, that maybe the stress of jail was messing with me. But at exactly 2:03 a.m., I remember because I was watching the ticking second hand on my busted watch. I heard it again. "Vitaly." This time I didn't move. I stayed perfectly still. The shape slid out from under the bars. It didn't walk. It poured, like smoke with a spine. It rose up, slowly forming a silhouette, humanoid but wrong. No face, just 2 gaping sockets where eyes should be. Empty, starless, as if light had been sucked out of them. It didn't speak with its mouth. The voice came from all around me, curling under my skin. "You think you're funny?" I couldn't breathe. My throat locked. My hands trembled. "You made people scream. For laughs." The thing leaned closer. I couldn't see legs, just a dragging shape behind it, like melted shadows. "Now scream for me," I snapped. Bolted off the bed and started screaming. I didn't care who heard me. The guards came running. When they opened the cell, it was gone. I begged them to move me, to put me anywhere else. They refused. "One more night," the older one said. "You leave in the morning. It only stays when you're weak." I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat in the corner, eyes locked on the bars, flinching at every flicker of light and sound. At one point, the bulb overhead exploded, plunging me into complete darkness. That's when I heard it again. Not a whisper, a laugh. It started low, then louder still, echoing like a twisted parody of one of my prank videos. It wasn't human, it was mocking me. I pressed my back against the wall, covering my ears, rocking back and forth like a lunatic. When the lights finally flickered back on, power surge maybe, I was alone. But there were marks on the floor. Long, scorched drag lines, as if something had been burned into the concrete, forming strange symbols I couldn't recognize. Symbols I swear weren't there before. They transferred me the next morning. I never went back, but sometimes, especially when I close my eyes, I hear that voice, that whisper. Vitaly. It waits in silence, beneath the floor, beneath every floor. And sometimes I wonder, how many screams did I chase for fun? Because something finally screamed back, and it still hasn't stopped watching me.
They told me the screams at night were echoes from solitary. But I know what I heard. Those weren't human screams anymore. I used to be a fan of Vitaly Zdorovetskiy. You know, the YouTube guy who did crazy pranks, the kind that always tiptoed over the edge. He made people panic for views, pulled fake heists, fake threats, real fear, caught on camera. Back in the day, I'd watch and laugh until I ended up in the same prison where they locked him up. It wasn't supposed to be for long, just a few weeks while they processed my case. Wrong place, wrong time, they said. I didn't know anything about that wing of the prison until they assigned my cell, Block D, Cell 47. That night, one of the guards paused before sliding the bars shut. He looked me over and said, "If you hear voices, ... ignore them." Thought he was joking. It's just some mind game they played with new guys. But he wasn't smiling. The cell was tight. 2 bunks, cold steel toilet, peeling concrete walls. It's the kind of place where you feel like even your breath gets trapped in the corners. My cellmate was this older guy named Lido. Barely spoke. He just sat on the bottom bunk and stared at the wall like it owed him something. The first night was uneventful till around 2 a.m. when I woke up to a faint sound. It was muffled at first, then it got clearer. Screams, not shouting, screaming, the kind that jerks your body upright before your brain catches up. I sat up, heart racing, looked at Lido. He was still lying down, eyes wide open. "Do you hear that?" I whispered. He didn't answer, but his eyes flicked toward the wall beside us, the one with the cracks. The screaming didn't last long, maybe 10 seconds. Then, silence. The next night, it happened again, same time, but this time, the screams were followed by laughter. It's twisted, echoing, like it was bouncing through a pipe that was never supposed to carry sound. And then, voice low, like someone whispering through a layer of static. "You think it's funny?" it said. The voice wasn't close, but it wasn't far either. It sounded like it came from inside the wall itself. Lido sat up, back still turned to me. "Don't listen. It'll talk more if you do." I tried to sleep after that, but every creak and crack in the walls made me jump. The air felt ... thicker, like breathing through damp cloth. By the 4th night, I couldn't take it anymore. I pressed my ear to the wall. That's when I heard the names. Not just 1 dozens, whispered, chanted, slurred together like a roll call. Names of people. I didn't recognize most of them, but one stood out. Vitaly, the voice dragged. The syllables. Vi, ta, lie. And then the laughter again. I backed away, but I couldn't stop shaking. The next morning, during meal distribution, I pulled aside a different guard. Young guy, maybe mid-20s. I asked him straight up, "What's with the voices at night? Why did I hear Vitaly's name? He didn't laugh. He didn't even look surprised. They locked him up in 49, he said. 2 cells down from you. Back in 2025. Didn't last long. Didn't last. I asked. He started hearing things. Thought it was payback. Said the walls were talking, mocking him. Screaming like his old videos. Told us he was being pranked from the other side of the wall. Thing is, he paused. Nobody was in the other cell. What happened to him? I asked. The guard shrugged. Found him curled up under the bunk, bleeding from his ears. Eyes open, still breathing, but gone. They say he's in a psych ward now, or not. I didn't eat that day. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat with my back to the wall, staring across the cell. My skin felt like it was buzzing, like I was covered in static electricity. And right on time 2:04 a.m. the wall began to whisper. But this time, it said my name. Gal. The whisper came from inside the crack. He laughed. 2, didn't you? Something moved behind the concrete. I heard the scrape of nail saw, something harder dragging across stone. Laugh now. The voice rose to a scream, not loud, but piercing, like it was vibrating inside my skull. I clutched my head and fell to the floor. Lido just watched, eyes blank, unmoving. I begged for transfer the next morning, faked a panic attack, threatened self-harm, whatever it took. They moved me to another wing. I thought I was safe, but the walls there, times they still whisper, just faintly. Names I've never heard. It's laughter that isn't mine. And sometimes, when the lights flicker, I swear I see a crack forming, just like the one from cell 47. They said blood always finds its way down, but that night I watched it drip upward, vanishing into the ceiling like something was thirsty up there. I've done a lot of dumb things in my life, that's no secret. But this wasn't just another prank gone too far. This felt wrong from the beginning. It happened during my second week inside a cramped provincial jail in the Philippines. Nothing like what you see on TV. The place was crumbling, humid, 24/7, and packed wall to wall with inmates sleeping on cardboard or flattened soda bottles. I wasn't scared at first. I'd been through worse. Cameras, lawsuits, threats, whatever. I figured I'd lay low, do my time, and get back out with a few more stories to tell. My cellmate, Marco, was quiet. Thin guy, in his 40s, didn't say much unless I started talking. Always stared at the ceiling like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. The guards didn't like him. I could tell by how fast they walked past our cell. One, even, slipped me a warning. Don't play with that one, okay? Just leave him be. Naturally, I didn't listen. I thought, what better way to break the tension than to pull a classic prank? Nothing crazy, just a simple ketchup trick. I've done it 1,000 times. Pour some tomato paste onto someone while they sleep. Pretend it's blood. Get the reaction, get the laugh, then explain. Easy. I scraped together some sauce from the kitchen with the help of a few guys on cooking duty. Waited until lights out. The guards did their final check. The hallway went dark, and I got into position. Marco was lying there, stiff as always, hands folded over his chest like he was in a coffin. I drizzled the sauce onto his arm, thick, slow. It rolled down his wrist like syrup. Then I whispered, "Bro, are you okay? You're bleeding?" He didn't move. I leaned closer, trying not to laugh. That's when his eyes snapped open. No grogginess, no confusion. Just wide, glassy pupils staring straight through me. "You shouldn't have done that," he whispered. His voice was hoarse, but steady. I laughed, nervously. "Relax. It's a joke, look. It's just." And then the smell hit me. Not ketchup, not sauce, copper, real blood. I stumbled back, staring at his arm. The sauce had vanished. In its place was a thin cut across his wrist. It's just one, deliberate, and from it, Blood oozed out in slow, thick drips. I panicked, swore I didn't touch him with anything sharp. I didn't even have anything sharp. I looked around the cell for help. No one was near. Marco sat up slowly, eyes locked on the ceiling, and that's when I saw it. The blood was floating, rising. Each drop hovered midair for half a second, then shot straight upward, like being pulled, not splattering, not falling. It disappeared into a hairline crack in the ceiling. Above his bunk, like the building itself was drinking it. What the hell, huh? I whispered. Marco didn't flinch. They know now, he said. Who? What are you talking about? Looked at me, and for the first time I saw fear in his face. You made noise. It sees pranks as permission. That's when I heard it. A scraping sound, like nails against stone. Coming from the ceiling, something was moving up there. I grabbed my blanket and pressed into the corner of the cell. Marco didn't move. He just sat there, head tilted toward the ceiling, muttering something under his breath, some language. Didn't recognize, not Tagalog. It's not anything I had ever heard. The scraping got louder. Then came the whispers from the crack. Dozens of them, layered, out of sync. They spoke in my voice, repeating things I'd said in past videos. Old pranks, old screams. It's just a joke, bro. He fell for it. Look at his face. Relax. It's fake. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe, and then a drop landed on my forehead, warm. I looked up. Blood from my head. I touched my scalp. Nothing. No wound, but the blood kept dripping up from me into the ceiling. The whispers laughed. Marco turned to me, his expression suddenly calmed, resigned. They don't want your body, he said. They want your intentions, your joke, the trick, that moment when you feel superior. That's what feeds them. I backed into the bars and screamed for the guards. Nothing. No footsteps. No keys. Only the sound of something slithering through the ceiling, dragging its weight across the beam. Slow, deliberate. I blacked out. I don't remember when. When I woke up, it was morning. The blood was gone. The crack in the ceiling sealed. Marco was standing by the bars, hands clasped. No wound on his arm. No ketchup. No stain. He looked at me, once cold. Halloween whispered, next time, prank the dead. That was 2 weeks ago. They moved me to a different cell block, but at night, I still hear the ceiling shift, and sometimes I wake up with blood on my shirt. No wounds, no pain, just a slow, warm trickle that vanishes into the shadows above me, and sometimes I swear I hear my own laugh coming from the crack. They said no one prays there anymore, said the chapel was sealed after something answered back. I got locked up in a prison south of Quezon's province back in 2024. Don't ask for details, I'm messed up. It's a kind of stunt that plays fine online until someone gets hurt and the law stops laughing. The place they sent me to wasn't one of those clean city jails. This was an old Spanish-era holdover that looked like it should have been a ruin, not an active facility. Mold clung to the stone walls. Cells reeked of rot and sweat. No cameras, barely any light, and guards who didn't talk unless they had to. During intake, one of the older inmates said something strange. They tell you to clean the chapel, pretend you're sick. He didn't elaborate, just looked at me with eyes that didn't blink enough. A week in, the guards called me out of my cell during night shift. I figured it was routine until they handed me a mop, a bucket, and pointed toward the west wing. One of them, barely older than me, whispered, "Don't look at the walls, too long." The hallway led to a door with a wooden cross nailed upside down. Above it, the wood was black with soot, like it had been burned and renailed over and over. This used to be the prison chapel. The guard said, unlocking the door, "They buried the worst ones here. Priests, too." It's the ones who didn't deserve the collar. Inside, it hit me immediately. It's a smell, like wet bone and old candles that had never stopped burning. It wasn't big, maybe the size of 2 cells, side by side, and the walls, they weren't painted. They were lined. Skulls, hundreds of them, cemented into the stone, packed tight, hollow eyes, staring in all directions. Some still had bits of hair. Others were cracked, missing jaws, teeth, scattered like gravel across the floor. A rusted iron gate divided the room down the middle, cutting me off from the altar. No one explained why. A single bulb flickered above me, lit light. Everything else was in shadow. They told me to mop, sweep, wipe the dust. Said they'd come back at midnight. Left me alone with the door locked from the outside. I didn't know what time it was, but it couldn't have been more than 10 minutes before things started. Shifting the candles. I didn't light them, but one by one, they began to burn. Small, silent flames on old wax pillars. At first, I thought maybe the wind had blown in from somewhere, but there were no windows, no draft. Then the air grew cold. Not normal night cold chapel cold. It's that kind of damp chill you feel in your teeth. I rubbed my arms and tried to focus on cleaning, but I couldn't stop glancing at the skulls. Something was wrong with them. I swear they were closer, like they were leaning, tilting forward ever so slightly. Like bones don't stay still when no one's watching. I dropped the mop and backed into the center of the room, instinct pulling me toward the only space that felt open. The flickering bulb dimmed, and then the chanting started low, like voices buried underground. Hundreds of whispers weaving through each other, ancient and angry. At first, I couldn't make out the words, just murmurs. Then one voice rose above the others. Not loud, but clear, male, dry, like a throat full of ash. Confess. I spun toward the altar. The iron gate stood still, but the candles on the far side were now burning too. Their flames bent toward me like they were listening. Another voice joined in. This one was different, younger, mocking. You thought it was funny. My hands trembled. I wanted to scream for the guards, but my voice caught in my throat. I backed up against the wall and felt something cold touch my back. I turned. Dan came face to face with a skull. I swear it wasn't there before. It was different, bigger, jaw intact, teeth grinning. Its eye sockets were filled with something dark, not hollow, not empty, moving. I stepped away. Dead. The skulls began to hum in unison, vibrating in their sockets. The sound rose like a hive waking up. Confess, the wall said. All of them. I fell to my knees. I didn't even know what I was saying, just babbling, apologizing for every prank, every lie, every scream I caused for laughs. And then, one by one, the skulls began to turn. Their mouths opened, dry and slow. You still think they were just jokes? The candles flickered violently. Shadows danced across the walls in shapes I couldn't name. Something crawled behind the altar tall, thin, wearing a priest's stole made of hair. It didn't speak. It only raised one finger and pointed toward the iron gate. The gate creaked, opened. I didn't wait. I ran to the door. Banged until my fists bled, and by some miracle, the guards came. I must have looked insane, screaming and crying, because they didn't even ask questions. Just pulled me out, slammed the door behind me, and threw a blanket over my shoulders. The head guard leaned in and said quietly, "Now you know. That room doesn't forgive." They never sent anyone to clean the chapel again. And to this day, every time I hear a group chanting, even in a church, even on TV, my hands go cold, because somewhere in that chapel, the skulls are still watching, still waiting, still whispering my name. I only walked down 13 steps. That's all. But when I looked up, I was back inside my cell like I'd never left. And then it happened again. I was serving time at a provincial prison in the southern Philippines. Low security, they said, mostly filled with drug charges, petty theft. I was in for staging a fake hostage prank. Idiotic, I know. But the judge didn't care that it was 4 views. 3 months inside, figured I could handle it. The facility was old, Spanish era stone. Walls. No windows in the cells, just thin slats near the ceiling that let in the smell of rain and smoke. What caught my eye, even on the first day, was the tower. There was a lone guard tower near the far end of the yard, round, narrow, and discolored, like it had been scorched in a fire no one talked about. The thing looked abandoned. Stairs spiraled down into darkness inside it, and no one ever went near except during night rotations. Curiosity got the better of me one evening. I'd made friends with a guy named Tonio, an ex-inmate, now working odd jobs inside the facility. He'd seen me staring at the tower one afternoon and said, "There's a reason no one cleans that place anymore." "What's down there?" I asked. He shrugged, but there was something off about the way he said it. Used to be solitary cells, maybe a tunnel, but that staircase is not normal. I laughed it off at the time, but that night, after lights out, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I didn't plan to do anything reckless, just peek, maybe go down a few steps, just enough to say I'd seen it for myself. Around 1 a.m., I snuck out during the guard change. Most inmates were dead asleep, and I knew how to move quietly. I slipped past the laundry room, through the yard, and toward the tower. The air got colder the closer I got, not just cooler, cold. Okay, my breath fogged slightly, even though the night was humid. The heavy wooden door to the tower groaned open when I pushed it. Okay, no lock, just rusted hinges and stale air thick with mildew. Inside, the narrow spiral staircase hugged the wall, each step made of worn stone. The only light came from the flickering bulb above the door, barely reaching past the first turn of the stairs. I took a deep breath and stepped down. The sound of my shoes echoed, soft and wet sounding. Drip, drip. From somewhere below, I heard water dripping slowly like it was falling into a cistern. I counted each step as I descended. 1, 2, 3. My hand trailed the wall for balance. It was slimy, cold to the touch. 10, 11, 12, 13. I stopped. That's when the air changed. Heavier, harder to breathe. I couldn't see past the next few steps. It wasn't just dark, it was thick, like the shadows had weight. I turned around and froze. The staircase behind me was gone. Gone in its place was my cell. Same bunk, same cracked wall. My blanket folded the same way I'd left it. I blinked, stumbled forward in disbelief. Found myself standing exactly where I'd been 10 minutes earlier. The door to the tower no longer behind me, just my cell, and no one noticed I was gone. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I tried to talk to Tonio. I went down the staircase, I whispered. Only 13 steps, and then I was back. His face went pale. "You counted them?" I nodded. He looked away. That's how it starts. That afternoon, I asked a guard about the tower. He didn't respond, just said, "Keep your head down, inmate. You don't want to end up below." But I couldn't let it go. That night, I returned. The door opened easier this time, as if it had been expecting me. I stepped down again. 1, 2, 3. The same cold, same sound of dripping water. 10, 11, 12, 13. And once a gunny was back in my cell. But something was wrong. My mattress was wet. The pillow was gone, replaced with something soaked and heavy. Okay. I pulled the blanket back and found a roll of clothes shaped like a body, wrapped tight in yellowing bed sheets. I backed away, heart pounding. The lights flickered. For a second, just a second, dude, I thought I saw someone lying in the top bunk. I never had a bunkmate dot. Then it vanished. The next day, I noticed something else. Time felt off. Breakfast came late. The guards didn't rotate properly. The guy in the cell across from me, he was missing. And no one mentioned it, like he'd never existed. I was losing it. I knew it. And yet, that night, I went again. I couldn't stop myself. It felt like I had to. 1, 2, 3. The darkness seemed to breathe now. 10, 11, 12, 13. This time, I didn't return to my cell. I stepped into the prison yard. It was night again, but silent. No crickets, no distant shouting, just wind blowing through empty towers. Except the tower I'd entered was now sealed. No door, just stone, like it had never been a way in at all. I walked forward and found myself staring at the same tower from the opposite side of the yard. I was stuck in some loop. Every time I tried to go back, the tower reappeared. Each time I entered, the steps were the same. The air got colder, the shadows deeper, and each time, what I returned to changed, slightly, wrongly. One night, I saw my own body lying on the floor of my cell. Another. I was back in the cafeteria, but all the inmates were turned away from me. Okay, perfectly still. Then, one night, there was nothing. Just white. Endless white, stretching out in all directions, and 13 steps behind me. Always 13. I don't know where I am anymore. I stopped counting how many times I've gone down those stairs. I just keep walking 13 steps over and over, and every time I hope it brings me home, but it never does. I woke up to the smell of cooked meat. I live alone and my kitchen light was already on. It started a week after they moved me into that detention center outside of Cavite. I was still reeling from everything getting arrested, the headlines, the backlash. I kept telling myself it'd all blow over. Prank too far, sure, but not something worth locking me up like a murderer. I figured it was just temporary. The jail was small and humid, crawling with mosquitoes and boredom. Strangely enough, I wasn't scared of the other inmates. Most of them knew who I was. Some even asked for selfies during mealtime. Well, as much of a selfie as you can get in a prison yard with guards breathing down your neck. No, what really got to me was the kitchen. It wasn't part of the main building. It sat a few yards behind the cell blocks. This rusted concrete square with no windows and a massive iron door that moaned when you opened it. Most inmates didn't go near it unless they were assigned to cooking duty. They started putting me on kitchen cleanup. Said it was because of the incident count. Probably meant I was annoying them too much. I didn't mind. It gave me space, time to think. But it didn't take long before things felt off. The first time, I found footprints, bare, wet ones, leading from the fridge to the back wall. The problem was, the floor had just been cleaned. Here was no sign of who made them. The second time, I found utensils arranged in strange patterns, forks pointing toward the ceiling, spoons in perfect spirals, like someone had been playing, but not someone with a human mind. I told one of the guards. He shrugged. Kitchen's old, he said. The night shifts don't check it anymore. Roaches probably, but this wasn't roaches. One night, I stayed late, past lights out, lost track of time scrubbing pans, letting my thoughts spiral like they always did these days. The place was dead quiet except for the buzz of the broken, fluorescent above me, flickering every few seconds like it was struggling to stay alive. Then I heard a clink. I turned. A knife had fallen off the wall hook, just dropped on its own. I walked over to put it back, then stopped. There were 3 more knives on the counter, laid out like dinner place settings. Forks and spoons too, placed neatly beside each one. In the center, a metal tray, empty, but warm, like it had just come out of the oven. I should have reported it, should have told someone I was done with kitchen duty, but I didn't, because the next night, the tray wasn't empty. I opened the kitchen at 5 a.m., expecting the usual chaos: leftover rice, rat droppings, the smell of old cooking oil. Instead, I found bodies, 3 of them, laid out across the stainless steel tables like offerings, naked, pale, mouths wide open, but they had no faces, no eyes, no noses, just smooth, blank skin where their features should have been. Like someone had erased them, and carved into the chest of one was a smile. Not a normal one, my smile, that weird, exaggerated grin I used in all my thumbnails, the one fans always teased me about. It had been cut into the skin, crude, jagged, too wide, its blood still fresh. I backed into the wall and nearly puked. My legs went cold. My heart hammered in my ears. I was too stunned to scream. And then I heard chewing coming from the back of the room. Not fast, not frantic, slow, deliberate, like something enjoying a meal. I turned just for a second. No, one was there, but the chewing didn't stop. I bolted out of the kitchen, yelling for the guards. When they came back with me minutes later, the bodies were gone. No blood, no tray, no smell, just the knives, neatly cleaned and stacked again. They thought I was messing with them, said I probably had a nightmare, or was trying to prank the system. They pulled me off kitchen duty, but it didn't matter, because that night I woke up, and the smell was back. Cooked meat, garlic, something sweet. Underneath, the kitchen was supposed to be locked, but the light was on. I didn't move from my bed, didn't breathe, because in that moment, I realized something worse. The smell, it wasn't coming from the kitchen, it was coming from under my bunk. I got down slowly, its heart pounding, and lifted the edge of the mattress. There was nothing there except a single plate, and on that plate, a piece of meat, still steaming, with a tiny smile carved into it. My smile. They say prison changes you, but don't think I ever left the kitchen. I think I'm still there somewhere in that room that feeds itself with memory, with identity, with people the world forgot, and whatever's running it knows my face, even when no one else does.